cancer battle definitely inspires me. A few years ago, my younger brother was diagnosed with bone cancer. He was 13 at the time of his diagnosis, so he was in middle school, and the bone cancer was located in his tibia. So he underwent about 18 months total of inpatient chemotherapy, and he also underwent a
Lymphocytic leukemia is rare in people my age group and is incurable. And when I was diagnosed, there was one treatment.
Thank
Say,
you.
what are those marks on your nose? Don't you wear glasses?
You doing okay?
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. Just trying to keep head above water.
Yeah, exactly. I always say trying to stay ahead of
We're
the dog
making our way
catcher.
forward.
Ladies and gentlemen, can you please take your seats? Our program will begin momentarily.
Well, usually I have to do something like shout, OH. Didn't need to do that, but it felt good to do it nonetheless, right? You know, I have to do it this week because my loyalties have been called into question. By the way, I'm Bruce McFerrin. I'm Ohio State's Provost and Executive Vice President who spent 25 years in Penn State's care. Now, wait. I went there in '88 as a young assistant professor. I grew up in the shadow of the Columbus campus and actually lived in the stadium dormitory as an undergraduate. Graduated with Archie Griffin, although he does not remember me from commencement. Penn State joined the Big Ten in 1993, and I assumed it was on my behalf so that I would feel at home. But for the years from 93 to 2012, when my last official duty before coming back to Ohio State was actually to escort honors students down onto the field at halftime of the Penn State-Ohio State game, which Ohio State won. One Saturday a year, I wore red socks under my blue pants. I'm just saying. Well, it's a pleasure for me to welcome you to the 2017 State of the Cancer Program address. You know, during this past year, across the university and across our community, we have spent literally thousands of hours working on the process of strategic planning. That work has involved input from faculty, staff, students, donors, alumni, community members, looking broadly at the places where we would identify strengths for the university in the coming years, how we differentiate ourselves. I'll just remind you that The Ohio State University is an exceptional place to be. This is an extraordinary university with extraordinary programs that have extraordinary impact on the people around us. And so the process of strategic planning is not to build us up to acceptable, but to take us to exceptional. And so it was a tiring process, I'll be honest. But the fact is that it was an affirming, invigorating process to talk about the dreams of where we could be. And we aligned at the university level with 5 pillars that will guide the university forward. The reason I tell you this is, first, I wanted the opportunity to remind you, you are part of an extraordinary place. But second, to say that for the first time in this university's history, academic health care is a pillar on which the university is building its future. We have acknowledged that as one of those 5 pillars. And I think that is an extraordinarily powerful statement about understanding what makes this university the place it is. The tie to today is this. The Comprehensive Cancer Center is a perfect example of how that works. The researchers, students from across campus, nearly all of our academic colleges, who are part of what makes the Comprehensive Cancer Center what it is exactly the paradigm for why academic health care is indeed a fundamental pillar for the success of the university. And so we start from that point. Today's presentation, which I'll have to catch on video, Mike, is actually an opportunity for all of you to hear a year in review. You've been living this year, but sometimes you need someone to step back and apply a different lens to the picture so that you can truly see how the emphasis that you've placed on your individual work and successes roll up to something that is larger and is a greater good for us and for society. You're going to hear today from a person that you know pretty well around here. Mike Caligieri is our director of the Comprehensive Cancer Center and CEO of the James Hospital and the Solov Research Institute. A 20-year veteran of Ohio State now. 20 years, passed like a moment, doesn't it? Director of the CCC since 2003 and CEO of the James since 2008. And under Mike's leadership and with your willing participation and hard work and creative thinking, we're now the third largest cancer hospital in the country and an extraordinary comprehensive cancer center. You all know this, but I'll say it for sake of completeness. Just this past spring, Dr. Caligieri was elected president of the American Association for Cancer Research, which is a high honor indeed and a recognition of the impact that he's had, both as a scientist, a physician, but also as an internationally recognized leader in the field. With that, Mike Caligieri.
Thank you.
Mike.
Thank you, Bruce. Thank you, sir. Have a good day. All right, on Saturday, I want somebody to check, make sure Bruce doesn't have blue socks on, okay? Great to see everybody today. Wow, what a great audience. Thank you all for being here. It's a pleasure for me to run through what we've all done and how we're all working together. You know, this is entitled, as you know, Delivering on Our Promise. And the idea here is, as Bruce said, we've done such extraordinary work, we, all of us here, all of you, all those around the university. And, you know, just to share with you, as I do every year, kind of where we are, what we're doing, and how it is that we're moving ahead. So, you know, that delivery, that promise, of course, is to create that cancer-free world. That we all believe that someday we will have a world without cancer through the efforts from here, people, and the collaborative efforts we have with others around the world. So this is a big, bold goal, but I hope to show to you that we're well on our way. We're going to really start with a video right now that really shows some of the national and international presence that we've had in the world just this past year.
alert now about vitamin B and a new study that warns men who take high doses of vitamin B could be at higher risk for lung cancer.
Scientists at Ohio State University found men who took high doses of vitamin B6 or B12 for a decade had a significantly higher risk of developing lung cancer than non-users.
Researchers at Ohio State University found that men who took high doses of B6 and B12 for up to 10 years doubled their risk of developing lung cancer.
77,000 people were studied for more than a decade. Men who took high doses of these B vitamins for up to 10 years had double the risk of developing lung cancer.
Researchers at Ohio State University found the risk of cancer jumped 30 to 40% among men who are taking vitamin B supplements at high doses over a period of 10 years.
Researchers in the United States say that low-tar or light cigarettes have been fooling smokers for years and are even more dangerous than regular cigarettes. The findings come from a new study from Ohio State University's Cancer Control Program. Dr. Peter Shields, who leads the study, says the problem lies in the cigarette filters.
Ohio State University cancer researchers say there's a rise in adenocarcinoma cases linked to light cigarette use. Health experts warn the so-called healthier smoking option are causing more harm by increasing rates of lung cancer.
Ohio State University finds filtered cigarettes have no health benefits and have likely contributed to the rise of a certain form of lung cancer that's deep in the lungs.
Well, there are new worries this morning about so-called light cigarettes. Many smoke them thinking they're healthier, right? But researchers at Ohio State University say they may actually increase your risk of a certain form of lung cancer that's deep in the lungs.
Researchers think the ventilation holes in filtered cigarettes actually allow smokers to inhale more smoke that has higher levels of toxins.
So the work by Electra and Ted and Peter and of course all of their teams is all in population sciences. So one of the things we want to stress here is one of our goals is, of course, to take the research that we do and get it to populations, because one of the ways we're going to create that cancer-free world is in large population studies, and especially in preventative medicine. So, you know, you heard about HPV, you heard about not taking B12, you heard about smoking cessation. These are globally important, high-impact discoveries that will influence our ability to quickly create the cancer-free world. So I'm going to shift a little bit now and talk about something that's also incredibly precious to us, and that is what we do for our patients. Because, you know, when it's all said and done, you hear those three words, you have cancer, you want to know as a cancer patient, and there are many in this room, that you're going to get the best at the best, from the best. And that's what we can do, you know, here at the James, here at Ohio State University. So just looking at our numbers, what's happened in the last 10 years, our growth. Here you're looking at inpatient admissions. Next we're looking at our clinic visits. Here we're looking at our chemotherapy infusions, and these are this year, up over 10 years, 133%. Radon treatments, over 48,000, up 129%. Cancer surgeries, 10,000. So you begin to see that the growth here is really amazing. The good news is that You know, we've had the capacity to have that growth. The bad news, of course, is that there are more and more people that want and need our services. So we've got to keep chugging. Today, I just looked and I put this slide in. We're at 98% capacity in the James Cancer Hospital. That means we have like 5 beds available amongst 300 and some. So again, many, many people want to be here. I guarantee you we have 40 patients right now waiting to come into the James today, and we have 5 beds. So working collaboratively, working efficiently is how, you know, our callers like Kristen Thatcher can be on the phone and say, I've got a bed for you, working together and working to make sure we're doing everything we can to get patients in and patients out. And despite this incredibly busy service, and I mean extraordinarily busy if you're ever in the James and in our outpatient clinics, we have amazing patient satisfaction. For inpatient satisfaction, we're in the 99th percentile nationally, and for outpatient, 95th percentile. So imagine, you know, trying to treat everybody in this room and doing it in a way with sensitivity, empathy, compassion, as well as efficiency. That's what our patients are telling us. And indeed, when you look at us against other places, just some of the things that we've received, for example, is the Prescadian Garden of Excellence Award, which says that for 4 quarters in a row, we've had, again, nationally, 98th percentile or greater patient satisfaction. And this is the 2nd year in a row that we've won this award amongst cancer hospitals. And we have the #1 patient satisfaction amongst cancer hospitals in America right now. So think about all that our caregivers are doing, not only the knowledge, the experience, the breadth of what we're doing, but we're doing it in a compassionate way that's so, so appreciated by our patients. So for that, I'm incredibly grateful to each and every one of you. There are a lot of things going on around that are kind of silent in the background that you may or may not know about. One of those is digital pathology. This is an effort that came to us about 3 or 4 years ago, and Jeff Walker's been behind the scenes making this happen. We got together with an artificial intelligence company called Inspirata, with Philips, the radiology company you might think of, the imaging company, and ourselves at Ohio State University, because our Department of Pathology has one of the largest archives in the world for pathology slides. And so it's now possible that what you're seeing under a microscope with 40x or 100x power on oil can actually be scanned by a processor and uploaded into a computer with that kind of accuracy and more. And so if you're somebody who buys stocks, I would sell short on microscopes. They're going away. In fact, here you see head of anatomic pathology, Dr. Neil Parwani, who's one of the world's experts in this, looking at patient slides, but notice there's no microscope in the screen. So what we're actually doing is if you go up to the 18th floor of the James, you know, we built a number of labs up there, and they were empty, and people said, we don't even know what you're doing with these labs. Why are we building them? Well, of course, now they're full, and they're full with things like this. So if you go up to the 18th floor, you'll see about 7 scanners from Philips. They're each about this big, and they're scanning 2,100 slides a day. We've now done over 200,000 for something like 90,000 patients, are all in this, being scanned in, and of course we're going to combine that with the electronic medical record. And so this incredibly innovative work can result in predictive medicine, because just like we're using the genome to try to predict who will do well or who will not do well, we can actually use patterns on a slide. And where a pathologist, with all of his or her knowledge, could say, I think I saw a case like this or 2 cases, and I'm pretty sure that patient did well. With this artificial intelligence, we actually can call up 20,000 cases like that and actually look very quickly as to how they did and decide how this patient might do. So there's predictive medicine in histology as well, and we'll combine this with our other efforts in predictive medicine that I'll talk about a little later. And importantly, it's incredible help with the workflow. Any of you involved in tumor board, this makes it virtually instantaneous. This is a big effort. It's highly innovative across the country, and we're leading the way in this. So very, very exciting. So that's one of the things we're doing, and we're doing for all of us, for the world, because we can do international consultation now over the internet. And we actually have some in Third World. We have some in Japan. We're starting to see people planning the scanners. They don't have the pathology expertise. They literally can send the slides over the internet. We can receive those just like these, review them, and provide consultation. So it's another way that we're reaching others around the world. The next thing I want to just tell you about is just some updates on our building. As you can see here, we've opened now the Patient and Family Resource Center. You may see this in the lobby of the James. Just a quick note already, it's just opened earlier this year, 12,000 patients or their family members have been in here. Private consultations, family meetings, internet access, any kind of discussions you need, gathering, it's all in this space. I'd encourage you to come in, take a look at it, and see what we're offering our patients and our families. And then we've expanded along the, I would say, the other patient services, some of which very, very important to our existing patients and our survivors. Oncofertility, big issue for cancer patients, as you know, especially adolescents, young adults with cancer, but others as well. And so we've now hired Leslie Apaya, who's here now, and her whole focus is fertility in the context of cancer. So we're delighted to have her join us. Our AYA initiative, adolescents and young adults, with Miriam Lusberg, Tim Kripe at Nationwide Children's Hospital and their colleagues, big effort now. And you know, this is kind of a silent problem, the AYA population. You know, it's rare cancers generally, so they get less attention because of that. And then you have the patient population, that sense of invincibility through your adolescent years, making it very, very difficult to get these patients into protocols which can ultimately help us cure and prevent some of these cancers. So we have a big effort ongoing there. And then the healing process, pastoral care, now 24/7 for our patients because, you know, cancer just doesn't occur 9 to 5. We need that kind of support, that kind of healing all the time, and now that's available. And then working with Chris Kipp and Marty Taylor and others, we're actually developing a hospice service within our medical center so that patients will not have to leave if they want inpatient hospice service. So these are things that are all going on, very exciting, all part of the patient-centered focus that we want to have here. And why? Well, with very good reason. Now at the James we have 45,000 plus people living successfully with cancer or cured of cancer. And just think about that for a minute. That's like half of the stadium right out there is filled with people who, because they've come here, because they've worked with you, because of work that you've done, are either cured of cancer or living successfully with cancer. And again, to support them, we have 60 different support groups that meet annually. Everything that you can think of that might be important to a cancer survivor is available in one of these 60 groups. And we have about 160 survivorship programs, everything from music therapy to art therapy to physical exercise, etc. This is an amazing new world. As I always like to say, when I was in medical school, there was no outpatient facility. There were 4 drugs to treat all patients with all cancers, and nobody lived. And think of where we are today. Think about where we are today and how much of an impact you all and we all are having on our population in terms of creating that cancer-free world. And, you know, no one knows this any better than our nurses. I mean, when it's all said and done, the person that knows the patient the best is the nurse. And we have phenomenal, phenomenal nurses throughout the James, throughout the medical center as well. You know, we're up for a magnet redesignation. We're now one of 8% of all hospitals in America that have this designation, this signature of nursing excellence. We've put the application in. Our review will be sometime next year. No doubt that this will be renewed and approved. And so from all of us to our nurses, thank you for all it is that you do each and every day. As I said, 98% capacity today, 40 patients waiting to get in. And as I'll show you a little later, sadly, cancer is growing across the world. So we need more space. And right now, you know, we're adding 72 beds. We're the 3rd largest cancer hospital in America. We'll still be the 3rd largest, maybe the 2nd largest. We're getting up there. We'll have about 400 beds in about a year. And of course, we have big plans for ambulatory facility, proton therapy in partnership with Nationwide Children's Hospital will probably come to our ambulatory campus, and as well as research labs, working with the provost and our deans, developing more research space for our talented researchers that need more space for us to bring more researchers into the picture. So we are now global. As you can see, we're serving patients from all 88 counties. We're serving patients from 36 different states and 26 different countries, and that's growing every day. We have a huge destination program now, which is very, very active and vibrant, bringing in patients from all over. And that really stems from discovery. So that's all from discoveries and investigator-initiated clinical trials that are here attracting the finest for talented faculty, but also then bringing those patients here to go ahead and experience what we have to offer here at the James. So I'm going to take a moment now, speaking of discovery, and we'll have a video on research.
My brother's story of his cancer battle definitely inspires me. A few years ago, my younger brother was diagnosed with bone cancer. He was 13 at the time of his diagnosis, so he was in middle school, and the bone cancer was located in his tibia. So he underwent about 18 months total of inpatient chemotherapy, and he also underwent a below-the-knee amputation. So during that time, it was obviously a very tough time for my family and I, and a very tough time for my brother especially. And I got to see a lot of the doctors and some of the researchers that helped to work on his case. And ultimately, all of their hard work brought an incredible miracle for us that he has been about 4 years actually cancer-free this fall. And he has a prosthetic leg and is able to play sports and do anything else that other kids can do. And he actually is 18 now and is just enjoying life and enjoying being healthy. We were so blessed that our family was able to have such a good outcome from cancer treatment, and I wanted to be able to do whatever I could to give others that same good outcome. So I looked into career possibilities and I decided I was really interested in oncology, which led me down the path of cancer research. So it's my hope that through this project and through the other projects I'll work on in the future, that more and more people can have those successful outcomes where they can be able to say, you know, I'm 4 years cancer free, or down the road, you know, we hope that he's 20 years or 50 years cancer free. And I just hope that in the future, our work that we're doing here will help more and more patients to have those wonderful outcomes.
Yeah, it's really neat. The young researcher you see there is one of our Pelotonia fellows, and I think we've now funded nearly 500 student scholarships to inspire people just like that, who of course are going to be critical to us creating that cancer-free world. So let's talk a little bit more about research and all that we have. So nothing gets done without collaboration. Any scientist here will tell you that. I mean, the number of single-authored publications here is, we do about over 1,000, 1,200 publications. So think of that as how many discoveries we have here. And the number that we have that are single-author papers, I don't think I've ever seen one. I don't know if you, Peter? Yeah, so I'm not challenging anyone to do that. But if you look at our publications, just take a look at this slide here. Go to the far right of the slide. 89% of all of our publications are collaborative. And that means that it's outside of your own laboratory. So it's not that there aren't single authors, but like my lab, if we did our own paper, we'd have only people from my lab. That wouldn't be included in here, even though there might be 10 people on here. This is when you've reached across the aisle to another laboratory, when you've reached across to another program, when you've reached across to another cancer center. A lot of questions that we get, and you likely get, is, you know, are you being secretive? Are you holding your work back? Are you not sharing your data? So I think 90% of the work here done is collaborative. And the other 10% is done in large laboratories. So literally everybody's working together. This is really a critical point, because this is what the Comprehensive Cancer Center does. Our whole mission, as funded by the NCI, is to create collaboration. Because we know if I'm working on something and you're working on something, we can create synergy of ideas and outcome if we work together. So the whole Cancer Center is put together with the notion of get people to collaborate, and that's what we do. And we do that by setting up different programs. Here you see the 5 programs in the Cancer Center, and as a result of this synergy, which is created across the Cancer Center, which, by the way, has members from 12 different colleges around the university, so very, very interactive, we've generated about $101.7 million in research funding per year. So this is an extraordinary amount of funding that's coming from this. And if you look at the breakdown, it's largely NCI funding, We're actually now ranked 13th in the country. I think, Clara, when we started, we weren't in the top 50. And so we've moved incredibly well in the last 20 years, and we're hovering in to become number 12. And of course, our goal is top 10 in NCI funding. And you can see funding from other peer-reviewed sources and non-peer-reviewed sources as well. So extraordinary progress from extraordinary collaboration, all facilitated by each and every one of you. It'd be impossible for me to talk about, any more than a half dozen or so discoveries that are made each and every year. Like I say, there's about 1,000 publications per year that come out of our cancer center. But just to highlight a couple of very interesting things that are going on that, again, you may not know about. Sometimes people with cancer die younger, but not from the cancer. And that's really not known what that's all about. And it's also known that inflammation, as might occur in diseases like lupus or rheumatoid arthritis, et cetera, is also sometimes thought to be part of the early death problem, part of the formula. So one question is, when people are treated for cancer and the cancer is cured or the cancer is put in remission, does inflammation, which is associated with cancer, go away? And this study, beautifully done by the collaborators shown in the slide, shows that no, actually, compared to people that never had the cancer, and this is, thousands of people comparing these people, there's much more inflammation continuous after cancer therapy. So the notion, think about these studies that I'm talking about, is how do we make things better? What do we do to improve things? So knowledge, creating the knowledge that we have increased systemic inflammation in the body kind of revved up and activating. What can we do about that? Think about anti-inflammatory agents. Could we do a clinical study to show that lowering inflammation actually prolongs survival in people that are cured of cancer? So very, very interesting story there. And this is a very interesting story. We've always had a big focus in blood cancers here. And in this particular story, there's a region of a chromosome called 6q23. And that region has been associated with leukemia, but it's really not been known why it's associated with leukemia. In other words, over and over again, we're seeing something strange at this very specific region of chromosomes, and that's associated with acute myeloid leukemia. And what these researchers found is that actually it's not what's there, it's actually what's missing. And in fact, there's a microRNA that is expressed in normal blood cells that's completely absent, and it's located at that very specific locus. And when these researchers put that microRNA back into the leukemia went away. So if you think about all the work that's going on with things like microRNA, and what we also need are technological advances to get the anti-microRNAs or the microRNAs into the cells, will be a remarkable hurdle for the treatment of cancer. And some of that work on delivery is going right here at Ohio State University. So more basic discoveries about what's missing that we need to put it in, or what's overexpressed and we need to block it. Very, very interesting work that is going to take us further along. And then other things, again, think about interventions. So in cancer, we know that stress, we know that depression adds to the morbidity and the mortality of cancer. But does anybody really know when that happens? So when does depression peak? When does stress peak? Knowing that can, of course, give us recourse with regard to intervention, right? So in this particular study by these researchers, they actually studied breast cancer patients from the time of diagnosis through treatment out 5 years. And they had their biobehavioral markers and looked at changes in depression and changes in stress and changes in immunity. And what they showed is that stress peaks at 12 months, depression and then declines. Depression peaks at 7 months and then declines. And the immune system is lowest right at the start of treatment and then gradually gets better over 18 months. So think about now what would be the next step. Would be intervention right before 12 months, intervention before 7 months. In order to start to decrease the morbidity. So very, very important research going on. And this neat study, which was done with over 30 different investigators from around the world, as you see David Carbone here, who was the lead for this study, at the first author on this New England Journal of Medicine paper. Really neat. So immune therapy, big, big area now. We'll be here for the next 30, 40 years. Is a huge area. Has anyone dared to compare immune therapy before a patient ever gets any chemotherapy for stage 4 metastatic lung cancer and compare it head on with patients who are getting standard chemotherapy? Which does better? You'd probably predict that with stage upfront metastatic lung cancer, got to have the chemo to beat that tumor down. Well, David designed and led this particular study, and in fact, there's no difference in overall survival. So in fact, you can, for patients that express certain immune markers who have metastatic lung cancer, you actually can skip the chemotherapy, give the immune therapy, and have just as good of survival. And some of these are remarkable complete remissions. So we're going to talk a little bit more about immune therapy in a bit, but this is amazing in terms of what's ahead for us. Very, very exciting. And then our colleagues in the pediatric arena, Tim Kripe has this amazing group of people that work on what we call oncolytic viruses. So that's, viruses infect us. So can we manipulate the virus's DNA to infect just cancer? And while it's infecting the cancer, to kind of explode the cancer cell, oncolytic viral therapy. So in this case, Tim did the first study in pediatric patients showing that the virus can be taken up by the tumor cells, that it can cause appropriate inflammation. And in this case, inflammation is a good thing because that means immune cells are attacking the cancer. So, and Tim and I and others work closely on oncolytic virus in human brain tumors as well. So very, very exciting work, pioneering work for pediatric patients. If you just look at the amount of clinical research that's been going on here, it's just really extraordinary. I don't have to shout out these numbers, but just, this is like the last 7 years, the kinds of increases where we have thousands and thousands and thousands of patients going on clinical trials, which is just extraordinary. The average for participating in a clinical trial is 3%. Our average, 23%. Think how many fold higher that is than what's out there in the general population. And every time we have somebody on a clinical trial, we're getting an answer to a very, very important question. Sometimes this doesn't work. Other times, this is amazing how well this works. And of course, we've had those kinds of experiences here, just the one I told you about in the New England Journal. It's amazing. You can take a single immune therapy, not give any chemotherapy in metastatic lung cancer, and get the same response. So our participation in clinical trials, leading the nation. Fantastic work in our cancer center and our cancer hospital. Just 2 days ago, my wife watches CNN a lot, I saw that there was a paper, and I actually went and looked up the paper, got the reference from CNN. It's a Nature paper, huge, hundreds of authors, and they discovered 72 new mutations in breast cancer. 72 new mutations, and the people with these particular mutations had like a 2 to 3-fold higher chance of getting breast cancer. So now you've got it, that makes it like 180 mutations in breast cancer. So think of if every woman in this room had breast cancer, how many of you would have the same mutation if there's 180 different mutations? The answer is there might be 2 people in here that have the same mutation. So how can we ever learn to treat, if I've got a drug for that mutation, how will I ever find those patients if there's only 2 of you here? And how do I avoid treating the rest of you who this won't work for? So let me ask a simple question. Has anyone here ever purchased something on Amazon? Raise your hand if you have, okay? Did you ever notice when my wife's hand went way up. Did you ever notice when you buy a book on Amazon, like if you bought Of Mice and Men, that what happens? You immediately get if you like Of Mice and Men, you'll probably like one of these 3 books. And you're like, damn, I read that book and I liked it. What happened to me is that, so I did that and, I ordered a book, and then I don't order much on Amazon. But I ordered this book, and then, a couple days later, I got something that literally said, would you like this vacuum cleaner? And I'm like, that's my vacuum cleaner. So the point is that if you have lots and lots of data, you can do lots and lots of things. Because how did they do that? They have millions of people in a database. And they found a couple thousand that ordered Of Mice and Men. And then they quickly looked and said, what else did they order? Find me the top 3 books they ordered. And they served up those 3 books to me And bam, I would like all 3 of those books. And then they said, what vacuum cleaners did they order from us? And there was my vacuum cleaner. And the point is that with just one little data point, they know me. They've got me. They know so much about me, it's shameful. And so building an Amazon in cancer is what we need to do to find those 50 or so people that have your mutation. And we'll never do that only at the James or any other cancer center in the world. We have to share our data. And that's where Orion comes in, right? So we co-founded Orion on that very principle. We don't have enough clinical data because there's 180 mutations in breast cancer alone. Do you know how many patients you need to find 40 with the same mutation? It's thousands and thousands and thousands. And you need them now, right? Because if you have breast cancer, you want to find patients like you. If you're the physician, I want to find patients like my patients and how are they doing? Or if I'm pharma and I've got a drug for this mutation, I want just those patients. If I don't, if I treat everybody, my drug will never get FDA approved. So that's where we had the idea of Orion, the Oncology Research Information Exchange Network. And we had this idea, and Moffitt Cancer Center had this idea, and we decided to share data. And through Jeff's group, 2 years of work, we hammered out an agreement where we are sharing our data. And you know what? It's going incredibly well. We have the total cancer care protocol here that says, patient, you can follow me for my lifetime. You can do whatever you want with my data. Share it to everyone. And call me if you have something for me and my mutation. In the first 2.5 years, 30,000 of our patients, 30,000 signed this consent at a success rate of 94%. 30,000. That tells us what patients want. You know, HIPAA, important, but I want you to do whatever you can for me. I want you to get me this consent. I want you to take my data, sequence it, share it, get me what I need. And this is a way we'll be able to do faster, better. And in fact, not only do we have 94% success there, but look what's happened across the country. In the 2 years that we had this idea, 17 different cancer centers have signed up. 15 beyond Ohio State and Moffitt. Now that includes the U.S. military, and we're about to sign in, probably I'd say in the next 6 months or so, the VA system as well. This has just exploded because everybody now gets it. It's like, I don't have enough patients. And there's a waiting list of about 18 more centers, and we're going to start to do health systems as well and community outreach as well. So this is going to grow and grow and grow so that at your desktop, as researchers, you'll have free access to this. And oh, by the way, every patient that provides their tumor and their clinical data, the sequencing that we do is free. Patient's not charged, the researcher's not charged, the insurer's not charged. So all available, and that data becomes available to you as researchers, to the clinicians, and to the patients. There's a patient portal as well. So that gets us to what we want. Here you have those breast cancer patients, or those colon cancer patients, or those lung cancer patients. And what you see here is, think of pharma, think of the researcher who's got a new drug. I don't want total numbers of patients. I want, say, my drug works in African American women who are 50 years old, who have stage 3 breast cancer, who have HER2 positivity and have a mutated P53. Those are the patients that I want. I want those for my clinical trial. And so I want the right patients at the right treatment at the right time. That's the promise of Orion. That's what it can deliver for us. And that's why we're going gangbusters on this for our patients, for our researchers, for our clinicians, and really for the world. This will be incredibly important in developing clinical parameters by which to treat patients. Instead of just using expert opinions, we'll actually have evidence based on what works in the various mutations. And we're going to add digital path to this. With Rick White, we're adding imaging to this. This is going to explode. This will be a huge game changer. It was co-founded by Ohio State. Other things we're doing, Drug Development Institute. Many of you have met Jeff Patrick, who's the director of the DDI. Really, we've got all these people making drugs, making devices, but we have a lot of trouble getting it to the patient. Pharma does that very well. They don't discover as much, but bringing something to a patient, pretty easy for them, a lot easier than it is for us. So we brought a team in of pharma people to take your discoveries and move them along, and Jeff leads that team. And you can see here, a few years ago, everything was in the left-hand column. Now if you go to the far right, you see we've licensed 3 compounds already to pharma. So just by providing our researchers an avenue, doesn't cost the researcher, give us your drug, we'll get our contract people to work that. They're not doing research, they're moving it through the pipeline for you so that we can retain the value of that compound as long as we can and ultimately license it for a bit more and hopefully develop a royalty stream which will fuel our research. So again, like Orion, Drug Development Institute is another effort we have to create another stream of revenue for us. This is just an example of what's going through the DDI now, and this is out of about 80 different proposals. So lots of people putting things in. I don't decide, nobody here decides, a board of pharma people decide on what goes forward. These are Ohio State compounds. This is what's going forward. And I show this because actually these are compounds from 4 different colleges across the university. So again, very, very interactive, very, very collaborative. I want to talk a little bit about something that's critically important to us. We can do all of this work, we can create a compound, but if we don't get it out to our community, if we don't create a network of those who can benefit from all that we do, what have we really done? 80% of cancer in America is outside of cancer centers. So we somehow, part of our mission, part of the NCI's mission with the Comprehensive Cancer Center, part of the James mission, part of what we're supposed to deliver, our promise, is exporting what we do to the community. And so you'll see with time a number of sites. This is one that's in Marysvale that we just established an affiliation with. And the idea is for the cancer patient in Marysvale to stay in Marysvale, but to have gone through a process where we know they're getting optimal care, and that when that optimal care can't be delivered in a region for whatever reason, that's when we take over, right? Because we've got like 180 physicians here and nurse specialists who focus on one cancer, each of them focusing on one cancer. And there are things that need to be done in certain cancers that simply can't be done in a community. So we want to be there for those cases that can't be taken care of. We want to have that affiliation, that go-to. We want to educate through the evidence-based things like Orion. But we also want to maintain a high quality of care locally so that everybody doesn't need to come here. And so that's part of our mission. And we do that in different ways. Here you see our mammography screening effort. This has tomo mammography in it now, so 3-dimensional mammography. This is our second van now going out there to these rural communities in Appalachia and other regions of the state, doing what we can to bring our innovation out to the community. And we have a second site for mammography in Upper Arlington as well. And then fueled by Pelotonia dollars, we've set up this network of 51 hospitals across the state of Ohio. And you've all heard about our first initiative, OCCPI, the Ohio Colon Cancer Prevention Initiative. Incredibly successful. Bottom line is we've probably saved 745 years of life, people that would have gotten colon cancer but now won't get colon cancer, and saved the state, after investing $4 million, saved the state $40 million. So really using our genetics, our network, our genetic counselors, our physicians, to go out there and prevent cancer based on a genetic discovery. That was from Pelotonia. 2 more now we're initiating. BLCIO, which I'll tell you just a bit about, and OPTEC. And what this does is this allows us to reach our catchment, right? So you're seeing, all these 51 different hospitals, and when you look at the circles that they cover, we literally have the state covered with this network. And so it allows us the ability to just deliver all the discovery that we have here. So talking for a minute about BLCIO, Beat Lung Cancer in Ohio. This is, as you can see, the investigators here. This is a really neat idea. So it turns out that things like lung cancer mutations, which can be treated with a pill and can result in a significant number of those patients going into a long-term 5-year disease-free survival, is not practiced that much, is not looked for that much in the community. There's still quite a bit of chemotherapy for those patients with metastatic lung cancer. And we're talking about 14,000 patients with metastatic lung cancer in the state of Ohio. It's a huge problem. So if you can't get this sequencing done and you don't know what mutations to go after, there's no way you're going to offer a pill which could eliminate all of chemotherapy, radiation therapy. So we're doing that. Again, fueled by Pelotonia, $3 million, all of your efforts. We're bringing those tumors in here. We're sequencing. We're bringing the knowledge back to the physician, to the patient, and making sure that they're using the latest and the greatest innovative work for the treatment of lung cancer. And then importantly, we know that when we find those hundreds of lung cancer, maybe 3,000 lung cancer patients we'll look at, when we find those, we know that's where the smokers live, right? So if I get lung cancer, there's a very, very high probability that people in my house smoke, as well as me. And so what we're going in with is the whole biobehavioral and pharmacologic interventions to get them to quit smoking before they ever get lung cancer. So they're in a house of smokers, they got a genetic predisposition to lung cancer, and we've got them on our radar to go ahead and try those interventions. So it's both a knowledge and education, a therapeutic, and then a preventative strategy. All very exciting. And then OPTEC is the Ohio Prevention and Treatment of Endometrial Cancer. And this hinges off of our Lynch syndrome study earlier, because it turns out, in addition to colon cancer, the other cancer that women can get when they have mismatch repair deficiency, when they have Lynch syndrome, is endometrial cancer. And so now we've gone back and we're doing a screening for these women, and again, to find the women, their daughters, their moms, that have the gene, that haven't yet developed the endometrial cancer, and working with the community, working with the network to see to it that it's prevented. What's really exciting is from the time that we first did the OCCPI and now, there's been a breakthrough, which we participated in the treatment for Lynch syndrome. It turns out that those cancers, because of a high mutational load in their tumor, are very, very sensitive to immune therapy. So unlike the OCCPI, which was identification, counseling, et cetera, now this is identification, counseling, and there's an arm for immune therapy for those that have this disease spread beyond surgical resection. And there's about an 80% response to that immune therapy. So again, just staying right in line, taking the knowledge that we have and exporting it out to the community is what we're all about. Some of you know about, and many of the physicians and some of our nurses, I saw Sharon here, participate in something called Cancer Bridge. And this is an idea we had really from all the calls we get, right? You get calls all the time. I have cancer, can you get me into the James? Well, that's the people that know us. That's a very, very small numerator on a massive denominator of people who don't know us, who hear those three words, they have cancer. And so we started a company called Cancer Bridge, and it's run with one of our foundation board members, Kent Bowen, who's the president of it now. And so Kent does call centers. So what Kent did for us is set up call centers so we could provide as a benefit to companies Cancer Bridge, where any person in the company and any one of their family members who hear those three words can call this number, and Sharon's hooks them up with one of our physician experts in that particular cancer. And I'm sure many of our physicians here have taken those calls. And we advise on the acuity of their situation and what should be their next steps. We help them navigate. They can call as many times as they want for any family member that they have. And it's incredibly affordable. We've gone from, we started it to get our analytic data with about 10 to 20,000 patients' lives, and we now cover over 550,000 patient lives from this initiative and really want to go much, much bigger. We've looked to scale this, but incredibly important. You can see the companies here that have now provide this service to their employees. So then last thing I wanted to mention is this really neat service, this mobile education kitchen that was really provided by funds from Celebration from Life, which many of you know about. It's been going now for about 15 years. And this is going out to the community to educate them about nutrition, right? Nutrition is critical to cancer prevention. Think about where, I think in its 30 years, smoking and obesity will crisscross such that smoking will become the second most common cause of cancer, while obesity will become the first most common. So think of how education about diet can be so important for cancer prevention. So with this van, you can't see it, but it opens up on the other side. You get cooking demonstrations, nutrition education, just healthy eating tips, all provided to the community throughout the state. And again, think of the poorer areas like Appalachia, where there's just the notion of something like this, and proper eating habits is really non-existent. This is what we're doing. So I'm going to talk a little bit about money, because no money, no mission. And right now, we have really two sources of money. It's the margin of our James, Cancer Hospital, and our philanthropic efforts. And they're two critically important, and we need to keep growing those. But just to show you what we've accomplished, here you're looking at our margin in the year 2000, which you see, you would call that a negative margin. Whenever you see parentheses on a balance sheet, I learned this a few years ago. That doesn't mean, parenthetically. That means start looking for a job. That means we lost money that year. And so we lost $2 million in the year 2000. And then just look at what we've done this year, through the extraordinary work of Jeff Walker, his whole colleagues, all of you, all that you're doing to create efficiencies, to that outstanding patient satisfaction that keeps patients coming back here. We're well over $250 million, $328 million that we have. And we've had for many years. And so that's building to help our medical center, help our university. It's shared across the university. It goes to the 12 colleges. And of course, it promotes and fosters our cancer research. The gray area is what we're investing back in cancer research. And the rest, goes to really President Drake to decide where those dollars are needed. You'll see that in years, I think, 13 and 14, we kind of leveled off. What do we open in year 14? The James, right? So more capacity, more ability to be efficient, more ability to serve at this time leads us to quite a margin. That's the good news. The bad news is that we have amazing challenges maintaining this kind of productivity. Most importantly, it's just healthcare reimbursement. There are payers that we are able to do well with and payers we are able to not do so well with. And of course, the door is open to everyone here, every citizen in the state of Ohio. So, and how insurance companies, you have insurance companies that are looking for value-based, meaning they want to pay, but they want great outcomes. We like that. And you have other payers that are just cheap. They're looking for low cost. And you should always think about that when you're getting insurance, because you hear those three words, you want value. The ability to recruit and retain faculty, nurses, social workers, pharmacists, very, very important in addition to our researchers and our physicians. NIH funding being flat, and a proposal from our current president to decrease it by like 20%. So fighting those fights and making sure that the $2 billion we got last year, we get another $2 billion this year so more and more of you can be funded. And then space. We're working with our deans, with our provosts to create new research buildings so that we have facilities, best-in-class facilities and shared resources for researchers. And then, as I say, partnerships. Because one of the ways that we're going to do what we do well is to scale. We have something that people want. We have outstanding cancer care. We have innovative research. People want that. And so how do we build networks where there's a win-win with that expertise? Now, that's the James, its margin. This is the other critical important part, and that's our philanthropic effort. And our board is amazing. We have the James Foundation Board, and you see 40-plus individuals here, some of whom are in the room today, led at this time by our chair, Cindy Hilsheimer. Extraordinary work. I was just in this morning with Peter Horvath and Kent Bowen talking about what to do next with Cancer Bridge, how to scale it. Pro bono, no charge, just to do it. And Kent always says if there's ever something he makes on Cancer Bridge, it's coming back to Ohio State University. So this is the kind of mindset you have, and Kent's put hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours into Cancer Bridge, for example. And so have all these other folks here from our community, outside of our community, who work so hard, so deliberately to see to it that we deliver. And just to show you a couple of examples, you know about the Block Memorial Tournament. This started in 1982. I'll just remind you that James opened in 1990. So the Block family has been doing this since before the James for cancer. Talk about visionaries. Look at the money that they raise, and of course this results in the Block lectureship. In fact, right there in the middle is Mary Claire King, who was our last Block recipient. So just extraordinarily committed family doing this. And actually, this guy right here in the back, Josh Barkin, one of the Block family members, just is part of our Next Gen, which is, I don't know what age Next Gen is, but it's young. And we have the Next Gen ambassadors, and those Next Gen ambassadors go out there and do things. And he just started a mac and cheese festival out at Easton. Many of you may have gone, got your favorite mac and cheese. just raised $70,000 for us, and that's going to AYA. So this kind of generational philanthropic support from people is just extraordinary. And then, of course, we have our Buckeye Cruise for Cancer. You can, there we go. Whoops. Go back to there, and you can see here we have Urban and Shelley and AJ and Laura Hawk, and, they're on the cruise every year. And, of course, I don't know if you know this. This is Lisa Cisco started this, where she gets the football coach who gets, Herb Kirkstreet and other players from AJ and others to come on, Bobby Carpenter, they come on, Archie, and all you need to do is get, Buckeyes on a ship and bring some alcohol, and it sells out within about 60 days. You're talking about 3,500 obliterated Buckeyes on the ship. And, but, that's the key to giving, right? So we've raised over $10 million from this, and it's funded all sorts of equipment, shared services, et cetera, for the cancer problem. I mean, you should see these football players working on this cruise. It's amazing the time and effort that they give. And, of course, Shelley and Urban Meyer started their fund here, which includes a chair, which is held by the chair of surgery, Tim Pollock, the Shelley and Urban Meyer Chair for Cancer Research, and a research fund as well. And they give and give and give every year. So phenomenal effort. And, again, these are just a few of the examples that go on here. Judy and Steve Tuckerman, 15 years in a row, Celebration for Life. I told you about the nutrition unit truck that they've paid for. We have tomosynthesis throughout all of our mammography sites. So it's 3D imaging, which gives you a crisper look at the lesion. Less repeat, women who are called back to do a repeat, very anxiety-provoking, stressful, and painful. Much less repeats with tomo imaging, and much less radiation with it. So it's like win-win-win. Celebration for Life, they're in every one of our facilities throughout the city and the county. So phenomenal work by the Tuckermans, as well as many other things that they've funded, OR equipment, et cetera. So passionate every year, big deal. And you all, many of you, I hope all of you, participate in Pelotonia. To date, we've raised more than $140 million. I saw the Pelotonia team here, thank you, and many of the other members of our board and folks who work so hard. But, I just mentioned like 500 scholarships, hundreds and hundreds of researchers with these idea grants, equipment, recruitments. So all of this is being used, and we're growing. We've 8,022 riders this year, 40 states, 10 countries. So this is amazing. Remember, this started like 9 years ago. I think we had 2,000 riders, and of course, most of them were quite local. So kudos to this team as well. Extraordinary work. And when you add it all up, and you look at our But for Ohio State campaign, which went from 2009 to 2016, look at the very bottom of this slide of all the units in the university, all the sectors, look at which finished number one. The cancer program finishes number one. So I'd actually like to take a moment, just have an applause for all of you that work so hard to do that. Thank you. So I'm going to just quickly, couple slides on our future. It's exciting. It's exhilarating. You see what's going on here. And, of course, just the tip of the iceberg with the discoveries and what's being translated into the clinic, et cetera. But it's also challenging. Because of an aging population, despite all the efforts we've got, worldwide cancer deaths are going to go up from 8.8 to 14.6 million, as you can see here in the next 20 years, 18 years. And cancer cases, the incidence is going to go up. I see 24 million worldwide. So we have our challenges. Just think, we're 98% capacity, we're adding 70 beds. That's going to be it for us for a while in terms of inpatient beds. But because of our population, because cancer is a disease of the aging, we're going to have more and more people to treat. So we have challenges, but we'll meet those challenges. We have some exciting things that have happened, though. Think of, again, remember, surgery, it's been around for 200 years. Radiation, about 100 years. Chemotherapy, like 50 or 60 years. All of a sudden now, we've got targeted therapies, right? Just finding those mutations, finding a drug that takes that mutation and unlocks it, and a patient without any of the first three modalities is actually relieved of their cancer in a remission, just from a pill or just from a single infusion of a targeted antibody, et cetera. So targeted therapy has been really amazing. The latest breakthrough, which is just in the last few years, is immunotherapy. You know, what happens, what we learned is that the tumors, when they grow, secrete kind of anesthesia that puts your immune system to sleep, or has molecules on the surface of the tumor cell that can put the T cell, the natural killer cell, right to sleep. And now those are called checkpoints, those little molecules. And now we have checkpoint inhibitors. And so when checkpoint inhibitors block the anesthesia, the immune system wakes up. You've not given any chemo, boom, it sees the cancer and attacks it. And that's been startling in about 20% of cancer patients, where you go into complete remission after failing everything. But there's the other 80% that we still don't know why the cells aren't waking up. But it has to do with discovering those anesthesia molecules, if you will, more and more. So discovery, basic and translational research will drive that 20% response in immune therapy to 40, 60, 80, and 100%. That's where we're going. There's something called chimeric antigen receptors, something Jinhua Yu works on, incredibly brilliant researcher here. And in this particular type of immune therapy, what we do is we remove your T cells and your natural killer cells from the body. We go ahead and infect those with a virus that normally infects T cells and like HIV, but you disarm the HIV, goes right in and delivers a special receptor called a chimeric antigen receptor that sees the tumor. And then we go ahead and we scale those up in the laboratory and we inject them back in. And so with that, we've seen remarkable remissions with what's called CAR immunotherapy, chimeric antigen receptor immunotherapy. I have a number of trials that are opening here now, and we have a great team, as you can see. And this spans liquid tumors, solid tumors, and our colleagues at Nationwide Children's Hospital as well. So this is truly, as I say, a big-time collaborative effort. So I'm just going to give you one quick example, something that came out from here, a targeted therapy of how we're impacting the world, single person telling their story.
Chronic lymphocytic leukemia is rare in people my age group and is incurable. And when I was diagnosed, there was one treatment available. It was a chemotherapy combination called FCR. I knew after some genetic testing that FCR would not work for me. So I was diagnosed with a incurable, fairly untreatable cancer. The life expectancy is 7 years. And at the time, my daughter was 5 years old. So it's sometimes hard to find the strength to put one foot in front of the other when you know that there's a good chance you're going to miss weddings and graduations and you know, being a grandmother, those were things that I mourned. I recall going to my closet and hiding from my kids because I didn't want them to see me cry. And as my luck would have it, about a year after my diagnosis, I found through lots and lots and lots of research a new drug that had come about. This drug was called ibrutinib. And Dr. Bird at Ohio State University is credited for bringing this to us. So I had the ingredient that every cancer patient needs. I had hope, and that got me out of the closet, so to speak. I came out to Ohio State and I met with the wonderful people there. Part of any mom's day is being there for her children, but I knew that if I wanted to be there long term, my best interest would be to go to Ohio State. Just a couple of weeks ago, I received the news that my bone marrow is cancer-free. So I made the right decision.
Pretty extraordinary story, you know. So I like the way she said, I had the ingredient that everyone has or wants, you know, it's hope. And I think, you know, the work that we're doing here, what you all are doing, what we're all providing, is that hope. So I just want to close by thanking you for helping me deliver on our promise It's all about you, all that you're doing to bring this forward, you know, in the clinic, in the laboratory, educating the next generation, the fundraising, the philanthropy, all that you do. It's truly because of you. So thanks very much. Have a great day. We've got some refreshments outside. Appreciate it.